Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate that kind introduction. Today I'm here to speak about water infrastructure and counterterrorism from the standpoint of the FBI. Before I begin, I want to just make some general knowledge known. The FBI in the United States, if you're not familiar with it, is the single entity responsible for terrorism events that transpire within on the U.S. soil. Having said that, we have a kind of multifaceted organization that has different divisions, and one of those within the FBI is the Weapons of Mass Destruction Directorate. Specifically, within that directorate, we have a countermeasures unit that focuses on infrastructure protection. That's one of the key areas. The other three would be biological, chemical, and radiological terrorism. I'm employed in the infrastructure protection area, and I deal with water infrastructure counterterrorism as one of my specialty areas. The FBI mission. The mission of the FBI is to protect and defend the United States against terrorism and foreign intelligence threats, to uphold and enforce the criminal laws of the United States, and provide leadership and criminal justice services to federal, state, municipal, and international agencies and partners. That's a key point. Our big push since September 11th is to bring global partners together to prevent terrorism in every country, not just the United States. We're focused, the FBI is focused domestically, but we do share our goals internationally. Having said that, this gives you an idea, it gives you a breakdown. We have 56 field offices, so where I'm based out of headquarters, which is in Washington, D.C. We also have 56 field offices, which essentially act as their own independent organizations dispersed throughout the United States. We also have 400+ residential agencies, which are smaller satellite offices, also dispersed in the United States. Internationally, we have over 60 at this point, delegates, which are essentially agents who are placed within embassies throughout the world. What's terrorism? I think it's an important point. We're talking about counterterrorism. We're talking about, what is a terrorism event? And this kind of gives you an idea. The way we define it is the unlawful use of force or violence against person or property to intimidate or coerce government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof, in furtherance of political or social objectives. Essentially, that's basically can be focused on any of our critical infrastructure sectors. In the United States, we define critical infrastructure, we define them as 18 primary sectors, water being one of them. And what's the WMD definition? Weapons of mass destruction event. It can be chemical, biological, nuclear, radiological weapons. All those, either independently or combined, we classify as weapons of mass destruction event. And what's our mission? Our mission, the key points here are really to point out that we coordinate proactive initiatives to identify and disrupt WMD incidents both domestically and globally. We also ensure the FBI is prepared to effectively respond to any WMD threat or incident. And we initiate and participate in domestic and international exercise and training. We develop tripwire initiatives and focus on executive oversight. I'll talk a little bit more about our international initiatives at the end of this presentation. This is a pretty busy slide. But this gives you an idea of how the United States is essentially broken out, and specifically the FBI. We have, at the top, we have the infrastructure protection essentially group made up of a number of different federal agencies, which include the Department of Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, Nuclear Regulatory Committee, EPA, things of that nature. And then as you break down, we engage our scientific community, our universities, our private sector, business entities. That is really the sector outreach program. And then we have the critical tripwires too. Critical nodes are any specific one entity that if it was attacked would either cripple or reduce the capacity for the United States to operate in an efficient manner. And we do that through environmental detection, as my colleagues have pointed out, through biological monitoring, air monitoring, water monitoring, and we also use public health surveillance. So we work in close coordination with the Center for Disease Control. And then on an internal level, whenever there's an event, if something does impact the water system, we do what's called a WMD threat assessment. And that's specific to the FBI, and that helps us whether it was naturally occurring, whether it was potentially affected on us by a foreign power and or a domestic terrorism event. And our #1 goal, and I think that's what we're here today to talk about, is prevention. Prevention is our highest priority. We simply stated that we can prevent something from happening, and we don't have to worry about cleaning it up at the end. And a lot of times, it's a lot easier to prevent than it is to fix it after the fact. So the scale of the WMD threat, we've talked a little bit about this again, weapons of mass destruction threat. The most likely specific attack parameters will focus on biological pathogens, and biological toxins, and or industrial chemicals. The other areas where they're important, they're not necessarily as likely to have such a dramatic impact, especially on the water sector itself. Now to move kind of directly into the water sector security, the reason we view this sector as particularly important is because of the large-scale impact it'll have, both mentally within the population that it has happened with, and also economically. What we found is that vandalism on a smaller scale has showed us what our vulnerabilities are. It could simply be someone who's playing a joke, or someone who's focused on a specific water tower, and in that specific one area has showed in the United States what our vulnerabilities are. And what we do is we gather this information through those 56 field offices I spoke about. We have what we call WMD coordinators. We have agents in every one of those fields whose specific responsibility deals with WMD events and critical infrastructure, and they're sort of our eyes and ears, collect that data, send it back to us so we can analyze that and determine where those critical nodes and those vulnerabilities are. And some of the chemicals, we talk about biologicals with my colleagues. We also, chemicals are also important in the water supply as a danger. Arsenic, organic pesticides, cyanide, and other nerve agents. Another big issue is physical and system variables that, if attacked, can dramatically affect the ability to get water out throughout the United States. One of the main issues with chemicals, though, is the taste, odor, solubility, and stability of the chemicals. So it's all affected by the amount of water you put in. So dilution, you've heard the saying, dilution is the solution. It's one of the reasons that the impact on the water system when attacked is usually less than, say, whether it's a specific bomb or whether it's a specific nuclear event, because water does have the unique nature of, there happens to be a lot of it, so it takes a lot to pollute it or essentially attack it. I think this has been said before too, but only about 1 to 2% of the water consumption is used for drinking and preparation of food in the United States, which isn't a lot. Another big aspect, one of the critical infrastructure we talk about is food and agriculture, because a lot of water does go to the development and growth of the agricultural products, so it's also something that we're concerned with. Contamination of water supply with biological, chemical, radiological agent would likely not produce a large-scale risk to public health. And we say this because of the dilution effect, filtration, and disinfection of the water system. And this is primarily focused on the United States itself, because we do chlorinate our water pretty significantly. We also have a good filtration system and the dilution effect because of the amount of water that we usually talk about. Now this is at the kind of the beginning stages. We're talking about an end contamination event, or a contamination event in bottled water or at an end user's location. That's a different story, and we'll talk about that.